What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another FPL video on the channel. And in today's one, we are going to be looking at some of the best midfielder options to buy for game week 1 between the price ranges of 5.5 million and 7 million. Now, of course, I am no FPL expert. You guys know that, I know that, but I am just simply saying my opinion. And I want to start things off with an absolute bang. I want to start things off by talking about this man here, Morgan Rogers, because in my humble opinion, he is by far the best and most superior FPL option out of anyone in this price bracket, right? I love Morgan Rogers as a pick, and at the price of 7 million, I really do think he is, as I said, right, by far the best option, right? A lot better than all the other options I'm going to mention in this video. I just love Morgan Rogers as a pick. Simple as that. When you talk about reliability, he can provide that. When you talk about being a 90-minute man, he can give you that. When you talk about starting week in, week out, no matter what, Morgan Rogers can give you that, and that's why I really do love him as an FPL pick, right? I just think you can trust him to start every single game. And guys, listen, when you look at the fixtures that Aston Villa do have, they are really good for like the first 7 to 8 to 9 game weeks, right? In game week 1, he's got Newcastle at home, not bad. After that is Brentford away from home, and I do expect to see a massive drop off with Brentford. They've lost their manager, they've lost some key players like Brian Mbeumo, Johan Wissa, Christian Norgard. So yeah, I do expect a massive drop off there with Brentford. In game week 3, it's Crystal Palace at home. In game week 4, it is Everton away. But even after that, it does get even better, because in game week 5, it is a game against Sunderland away from home. And then in game week 6, it's Fulham at home. And then in game week 7, it is Burnley at home. So you guys can see there, the first 7 games, really good for Aston Villa. And as I said, guys, when you talk about reliability, when you talk about a player that can just start week in, week out, you don't have to worry about him getting subbed off in games. Rogers is that player. So for me, I like him a lot. And of course, in terms of what he can do on the football pitch, I think we all saw how good Morgan Rogers was last season, right? In terms of just natural footballing ability, he is definitely one of the better players in the Premier League, right? Fantastic player. And I think the more he plays, the more he matures and grows as a player, he's only going to get better. And I think his end product will get better. And I think Morgan Rogers will definitely surpass his goals and assist tally in the upcoming season, right? When you compare it to what he got last season. Last season, he got 8 goals, 11 assists. I do expect him to get even more than that in the upcoming season, right? Because as I said, I think he'll only get better as he does mature and get more experience in the Premier League, right? So yeah, for me, as I said, guys, man, I'm a big fan of Morgan Rogers, and currently he is in my own personal draft as well. He's got 21% ownership, so I'd say a fair few amount of people do have him. But yeah, for me, at 7 million, he's by far the best option in my opinion. So yeah, I like him a lot. Let me know what you guys think of Morgan Rogers down below in the comments. But for me, I just think, yeah, what a great FPL option he is going to be. All right, guys, so next up we do have Mohamed Kudus, and he is coming in at a price of just 6.5 million. And I really do believe there is some serious potential with Mohamed Kudus for FPL, right? I think he is a player that could possibly explode. And I want to start off by saying, yes, I do understand, right? Last season for West Ham, he absolutely stunk up the place week in, week out, right? We didn't really see the best of Mohamed Kudus for West Ham last season, but I do believe that is just the environment he was in. He was also playing out of position, like for West Ham, the majority of the time he was playing off the left-hand side, and I think that is not where Mohamed Kudus will thrive. That's not where you're going to get the best out of Mohamed Kudus. For me, to get the best out of Mohamed Kudus, he's got to play on that right hand side or in that number 10 role, and I think that's where he's going to play in this Thomas Frank system for Tottenham. And I think Thomas Frank has the ability to get the best out of attackers in his system, right? We've seen at Brentford what he can do with the likes of Johan Wissa. We've seen what he can do with the likes of Brian Mbeumo, and I actually do believe that Mohamed Kudus could possibly be Thomas Frank's Brian Mbeumo. I think he does have the quality, bro. Yes, Mohamed Kudus, like I said, had a poor season last season, but let's not pretend like we've not seen Mohamed Kudus absolutely ball out in the Champions League, for example, for teams like Ajax. I think the ability is there, right? He's a good footballer. He was just in a bad environment last season. So I do believe, right, for Tottenham, in a new environment, in a new system, right, we could see the best of Mohamed Kudus, and I think there is some serious potential there. His ball striking ability is good, his crossing is good, he's a powerful runner, he can beat a man on the inside and the outside, right? So I think overall, as an attacker, in terms of chance creation, but also goal scoring ability, there is potential there. Yes, sometimes his decision making can be off. I do understand that. When you watch him on the eye, it's something you can see. Sometimes his decision making isn't 100% there, but I think, right, at his price point, 6.5 million, I think he can offer quite a decent amount of value there in terms of points he gets when you compare it to the price that he is, right? I do think there is some value to be made there. So look, for me, I do think there's potential there with Mohamed Kudus. Also, what I like about Mohamed Kudus as an option is the fact that Spurs have a very, very good start to the season in terms of their fixtures, right? In game week 1 it is Burnley at home, then in game week 2 is City away, in game week 3 is Bournemouth at home, in game week 4 is West Ham away. You guys can see here, man, the fixtures are looking quite tasty, if I do say so myself. And then in game week 5 is Brighton away, in 6 is Wolves at home, then Leeds away. I could go on and on and on, right? But I don't want to bore you guys, but you guys can see right here the fixtures. It's looking good. It is looking good for Spurs, man. So look, the fixtures are there, and I think the potential is there with Mohamed Kudus, because he is a good footballer, right? And that's what I like. He is a good footballer. So I'm hoping that Thomas Frank can get the best out of this player, because if he does, then I think he'll be a fantastic FPL option. Now, they're all the positives with Mohamed Kudus. It's not all rainbow, it's not all sunshines over here, because there is a couple negatives that I do want to point out. In my opinion, I just don't know how much we can trust him in terms of start and minutes. That's the only concern I have. I do believe Tottenham bought him to be to be a consistent starter. I do kind of believe that. However, with Champions League football, with European football, and with the squad depth that Spurs have at the moment, of course, players like Son, maybe Odegaard could possibly leave. I'm not too sure. But at the moment, with the current crop of players Spurs do have, it does kind of worry me a bit in terms of the minutes that Kudus will get, right? Will he be on the pitch for 90 minutes? Will he even start every single game? I'm not too sure. And that's the only concern I've got at the moment with Mohamed Kudus. Of course, like I said, players might leave. But as it stands, Spurs do have a lot of options. You know, there's Matthias Tell, there's Son, there's Brennan Johnson, there's Odegaard, there's Kulusevski, there's Maddison, right? These are all the players that are competing with Mohamed Kudus, right? Because Mohamed Kudus will most likely play off the right or in the 10. So there is a lot of options there for Spurs, and that's the only concern I do have with Mohamed Kudus. But I would still say he's a good option, and that's why I've included him in there. For me, when you look at the other options that cost 6.5 million and below, it's not really too appealing, right? There is only a few options in this price range that I really like, to be honest with you guys. I think the options, you know, at 5.5 million, 6 million, 6.5 million are really, really underwhelming. And for me, Mohamed Kudus, although I've mentioned a couple of negatives, he is still one of the better options at that price point, in my opinion. So yeah, if you are looking for a midfielder at this price point, I think I would definitely consider going for Mohamed Kudus. Right, guys, so next up, we do have a player here who I believe could be a very, very nice cheap gem, and he is coming in at the price of 5.5 million, and it is none other than the man himself, Elliot Anderson. Right, guys, I honestly believe this player here has some potential to be a very, very nice long-term set and forget cheap enabler, maybe a rotational piece in your squad. But I do think there is some sort of value there with Elliot Anderson, and that is because of the new addition of defensive contributions, right? First things first, what I want to point out with Elliot Anderson, the very first point I want to make is that when you check, right, the table for defensive contributions from last seasons between midfielders, he was inside the top 3. As you guys can see here, according to Fantasy Football Scout, right, Moises Caicedo was number 1 in terms of defensive contributions made throughout the entire season with 455. Idrissa Gana Gueye was at number 2 with 418, and then Anderson was number 3 with 407. Right, so that's the very, very first point I want to make. He seems to be a very good player for defensive contributions, and as you can see, it averaged out over a per 90 basis. It was 12.21 defensive contributions per 90. Right, so for defensive contributions, it does seem like Elliot Anderson is really, really good. That's the first point I want to make. But yeah, I also think Elliot Anderson is not only someone very, very good for defensive contributions, but he's also someone that is really, really good. Not really, really good, but he is also capable of, you know, chipping in with some goals, with some assists, right? And that's why I do like him. And as I said, he's a cheap enabler, so he doesn't need to really score every single week. He doesn't need to assist every single week. But when you combine sort of, you know, his decent amount of goals and assists with now added points from defensive contributions, I do think it makes him quite a decent option. And another thing that I want to mention, right, is Nottingham Forest play style. It suits Anderson and it suits this idea of trying to get points from defensive contributions, because Nottingham Forest last season, right, what we saw of them was a team that liked to give the opposition the ball, let them have the ball, and we're going to sit back, we're going to defend, right? That's the play style of Nottingham Forest, and I think that suits Anderson, that suits the idea of trying to gain points from defensive contributions, because to get defensive contributions, you can't have the ball, right? You need the opposition to have the ball, and Nottingham Forest like to give up possession. There were so many times last season where I was watching Nottingham Forest play teams like Leicester, like Everton, who are typically poor teams, you would say, right? But still in these games, Nottingham Forest were allowing these teams like Everton and Leicester to have the ball, to have possession. So I think if Nottingham Forest continue to play in this way, in this style, it could suit Anderson a lot more. And I think at 5.5 million, man, he could be a very, very nice cheap enabler. He could allow you, right, to sort of just focus on going for maybe a big sort of premium structure. Maybe you go for a free premium structure with, I don't know, Salah, Palmer and Saka, for example, or Salah, Haaland and Saka, for example, right? I think that's what he can allow you to do. And I think overall, right, he will just tick along quite nicely. As I said, he can come into the team when needed. But as I said, the main sort of reason why I really do like Anderson is because of the play style of Nottingham Forest, because they're so defensive, because they don't really like to have a lot of the ball. It opens up more of a possibility for Anderson to make those defensive contributions, and that's why I really, really do like him. And at the price of 5.5 million, man, I do think he could be a gem. I honestly really, really do. And yeah, that's really all I have to say, to be honest with you. I honestly think he can be a gem. I'd love to know what your thoughts are, guys, down below in the comments. So next up, we do have Anton Semenyo, and he is coming in at a price of 7 million. And right now, he's only got a 5.5% ownership, which is relatively low, to be honest with you guys. But the reason why I've gone for Anton Semenyo is because he is a little bit similar to Rodgers, in my opinion. When you talk about being a 90-minute man, when you talk about having that reliability factor about you, when you talk about being a consistent starter week in, week out, no questions asked, that is what Anton Semenyo gives you. And that's why I kind of do like him as a sort of FPL asset, because I feel like these 90-minute men that can just start week in, week out, that you can trust, I am a big fan of, right? And that's what Semenyo is. So for me, I think he's a pretty decent option. Of course, look, last season, right, I owned him a few times throughout the season, and he can be quite a frustrating FPL asset at times. He can be quite a rash finisher. Sometimes he does like that composure, but sometimes he can also be, you know, relatively clinical. I think last season he actually did have some of the most shots in the Premier League, so he does shoot a lot, right? But sometimes, as I said, he can be a bit rash with his finishing. But all in all, I do quite like Semenyo, as I said, more so because he is sort of that reliable man, that someone that you can sort of trust. When you look at the Bournemouth team sheet, you know he's going to start when the game's, you know, in the 85th, 80th minute, you know he's going to be on the pitch. I think, look, other options like Kluivert, some might say it is better than Semenyo because he's got the penalties as well. However, I think, look, Kluivert, for me, has too much of a reliance on penalties when it comes to scoring goals. Like last season, Kluivert managed to get 12 goals, 6 assists, for example. You guys can see here, 12 goals, 6 assists in 29 starts. But 6 of those goals, guys, were penalties, right? So for me, I don't know how much I really do like Kluivert. I just think another thing as well is that sometimes he would get subbed off around the 60th minute mark. His minutes weren't as good as Semenyo, especially when everyone was fit. Like, most of the time Kluivert got 90-minute matches was because Bournemouth had a lot of injuries last season. When everyone was fit, he would usually get subbed off. So that's why for me, I do prefer Semenyo over Kluivert, even though Kluivert does have the penalties. So yeah, if I was going to go for a Bournemouth attacker, for me it would be Semenyo. So yeah, that's what I've gone from. Of course, in terms of the fixtures, right, Liverpool away in game week 1, probably the worst fixture you can get. It's not really ideal, I do understand that. Maybe if you can get a rotation going on, so maybe you got a cheaper enabler like an Anderson at 5.5 that can rotate well with Semenyo, for example, that would work, because actually Anderson's got Brentford at home in game week 1, and yeah, Semenyo's got Liverpool away. So yeah, if you can maybe get a cheaper enabler that can rotate with Semenyo, that would be ideal. But look, even if you can't, I still think the fixtures for Bournemouth are pretty decent. After Liverpool, it's Wolves at home, then it's Tottenham away, then it's Brighton at home in game week 4. That's not too bad at all. And then after that, it is Newcastle at home, then Leeds away in game week 6, then Fulham at home in 7, and Palace away in 8, Nottingham Forest at home in game week 9 as well. So I think the fixtures there are actually pretty decent. And as I said, you can trust Semenyo to start every game. You can trust him to get 90 minutes. So for me, I think at his price point, 7 million, yeah, he is definitely one of my favorite options to go for. So yeah, let me know what you guys do think of that down below in the comments. Will you be going for Semenyo in your game week 1 squads? I mean, look, if you're going to pick, if it's a choice between Rodgers at 7 million and Semenyo at 7 million, as I said, I think Rodgers is by far the better option. But still, if you're maybe going for 2 7 million options in your team, then I kind of do like Semenyo. So yeah, let me know what you guys do think of that down below in the comments, and let's move on to the next player. All right guys, so next up we do have Dwight McNeil and McNeil Ndiaye, and I sort of just want to talk about both of these two players. Of course, Dwight McNeil is coming in at a price of just 6 million, and McNeil Ndiaye is coming in at a price of 6.5 million. So look, I think the Everton fixtures are really good, and I think a lot of people are sort of wondering what attacker do they go for. Now, me personally, I do actually prefer Dwight McNeil slightly over McNeil Ndiaye. That might shock a lot of you, I know, because McNeil Ndiaye does have the penalties, but I just think, right, overall, when you combine the goals and assist potential, Dwight McNeil does edge it for me over McNeil Ndiaye, because when you look at the returns from last season, for example, right, Dwight McNeil got 8 assists, 4 goals in just 15 starts, right? So 12 goal contributions in just 15 starts, and McNeil Ndiaye only got 9 goals, but started double the games. I think he started 29 games last season and only got 9 goals, and some of those goals included penalties as well. So for me, I do think Dwight McNeil is slightly the better option. But also, look, when I watch both players, right, I think both players from open play have relatively low goal threat. I think McNeil Ndiaye has relatively low goal threat from open play, and so does Dwight McNeil. But what I will say is that Dwight McNeil does have a strike on him, right? And he will usually bang one into the top corner a few times in a season. I think we all know that. So, and when you combine that with the fact that he takes corners as well, and Everton are really strong from set pieces. They got players like Tarkowski, Branthwaite, O'Brien, right, that are massive aerial threats. And because of that, I just think overall his assist potential, his goals potential outweighs what McNeil Ndiaye can give you in terms of FPL points. So for me, I slightly do prefer Dwight McNeil. I think some people are probably going to counteract what I'm saying with the minutes. I think McNeil Ndiaye is probably more safer for minutes, because, you know, you've got Alcaraz there that can also come in and replace Dwight McNeil as a sub. So fair enough, I do understand that. But I just think if I had to pick between Dwight McNeil and McNeil Ndiaye, I would go for Dwight McNeil, especially because he's also cheaper as well, guys, right? You got to factor in the prices of both players. You know, McNeil Ndiaye is 6.5 compared to Dwight McNeil being 6 million. I think I'd rather go for the cheaper option in McNeil, because there isn't really much to split the two, if I'm being totally honest. So I'd rather go for the cheaper option in Dwight McNeil at 6 million and then use the extra 0.5 to upgrade a different position in my team. I think I would rather do that. I do think, look, both Dwight McNeil and McNeil Ndiaye, they aren't the most appealing options. And this is what I mean when I say I think there isn't a lot of sort of good options at 6.5 million and below. There isn't a lot, right, that really fill you with confidence, right? But I think, as I said, Everton do have really good fixtures. As you guys can see, they got Leeds away in game week 1, Brighton at home in game week 2, Wolves away in game week 3, Villa at home in game week 4, Liverpool away in 5 is tough, but then after that it's West Ham at home in game week 6. So you guys can see that the opening fixtures for Everton are really good. So I do understand why people want to go for an Everton midfielder. Currently in my draft, I've actually got Dwight McNeil, believe it or not. I am still considering him. I'm actually, the more and more I think about it, I think I am favouring Anderson over Dwight McNeil. But yeah, we'll definitely speak about that in my draft video that will come out soon. But yeah, I think Dwight McNeil, McNeil Ndiaye is a tough one. It is a tough one. It's very close. But I think because Dwight McNeil is also cheaper, and again, just the rate, the points per game for Dwight McNeil last season was so much better than McNeil Ndiaye. And even on the eye test, right, McNeil Ndiaye doesn't really have the best of goal threat, if we're being totally honest. He's a very good player, silky play, good on the ball, can beat a man. He's got loads of tricks. I do like him, don't get me wrong. But in terms of an FPL asset, in terms of providing goals and assists, I would have more confidence in Dwight McNeil, I do believe. That's my honest opinion. So yeah, man, it really is tough between these two. But again, let me know your thoughts down below. I think it will be split. Probably more people leaning towards Ndiaye because he does have the penalties, which is fair enough. Yeah, let me know your thoughts of that down below in the comments, and let's move on to the final player. All right, guys, so next up we do have Amad Diallo, and I know some of you guys are probably thinking, what on earth am I talking about? But hear me out for a second. As you guys can see by the graphic on your screen, I'm picking Amad Diallo, right, with the pure intention of possibly using him as a rotational piece in your squad, which is why you guys can see Mohamed Kudus here on your screen as well, because Manchester United and Tottenham really do have a good sort of rotation going on between them. So maybe if you've got a very deep squad, you're looking to bench boost relatively early on, right? And because of that, you've got a full 15-man playing squad. I do believe you could have Amad Diallo in your team at the price of 6.5 million if you can rotate him in and out when needed. For example, as you guys can see here, if you do use Amad Diallo and Kudus as a rotation, you do get some very nice favorable fixtures. And in fact, in the first 3 game weeks, you get to play Burnley at home twice, right? Kudus plays against Burnley at home in game week 1, and in game week 3, you can see Amad Diallo plays against Burnley at home as well. And then in game week 4, you get West Ham, and then Brighton, and then in game week 6, you get Brentford, and in game week 7, you get Leeds. So you guys can see there, right, the fixture run, when you use Kudus and Amad Diallo as a rotational piece together, right, it does kind of work, because Manchester United have overall a bad fixture run, but if you can sort of, as I said, bench our players when we have bad fixtures and start our players when we have good fixtures, then it could work out. So look, that's why I've gone for Amad Diallo. But also, I know you guys are probably thinking, why on earth am I suggesting a Manchester United player? Did you see the terrible performances that we put up last season? We absolutely stunk up the place week in, week out. Amram looks like a fraud. He looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. I understand all of that completely, guys. But at 6.5 million, I still think Amad can provide good value, even though we stunk up the place last season. I mean, even though we were so bad last season, Amad Diallo was our only shining light. Amad Diallo was cooking, right? He actually did really well in terms of his rate of returns last season. He only started 20 games, and in that season he managed to get 8 goals and 8 assists. That's really good. So I do have full confidence in Amad Diallo being a good option, especially in our better games, especially when we have better fixtures. So for me, I like Amad Diallo, and especially because in this structure, with the way it works in terms of using him as a rotation piece, only if you have a deep squad. Like, I'm not saying to sort of pick Amad Diallo to start every week. No, if you're going to use Amad Diallo for that and you've not got good bench cover, don't do it. But if you've got a deep squad, because maybe you're looking at a relatively early bench boost and you've got, the money to buy 2 6.5 midfielders and have one of them on the bench every game week, then that's fine. In terms of Amad Diallo, what I want to touch on in terms of his position, I know some of you guys are probably thinking, why do I want to pick Amad Diallo? He's playing at wing back. But honestly, look, I'm a Man United fan. I'm a Manchester United fan, and honestly, after watching him last season, even when he played at wing-back, he still was cooking. Even when he played at wing-back, he still was getting goals and assists. I'm pretty sure he actually scored a hat-trick from playing at wing-back. Even if he plays at wing-back, he essentially plays as a winger in possession. He will find himself forward a lot. He'll still get into dangerous areas to score goals, to create chances. So yeah, for me, I like Amad Diallo, man. A very good technical footballer as well. And I think as he progresses, as he matures again, he will only get better. Of course, Man United as a team are really bad, but as I said from before, we stunk up the place week in, week out last season, and still Amad Diallo got 16 goal contributions in just 20 starts. That's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, for me, I think there is potential there with Amad Diallo, and I think if you can use him as a rotational piece at 6.5, he actually could be a really nice option. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy it. If you did, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. But yeah, it has been your boy FPL Ryan, and I will catch you guys in the next one. But until then, I'm out. Peace.